Okay, good morning, everybody. We are in Parashat Yitro. Parashat Yitro, we have Matan Torah. We're getting the Torah from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. But one of the interesting points is the beginning of the Parasha, and why is the Parasha written on the name of Yitro, which brings us to a very important lesson in life. Who is Yitro? Yitro is Cohen Midian. He is a Midianite priest. And as we learn about him, we understand and realize that he was searching for what is the real belief, in what to believe. He was just searching all the gods that he knew, and he was really a worship idols that nobody even understand. He was looking, he was seeking for the truth. And eventually he decides that we are the real religion, and he comes and joins us. He comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, now I know that God is the one and the only one. There's nobody else, because I saw what happens and I understand. And nevertheless, Yitro, his greatness is no doubt about it, because he was one of the consuls of Pharaoh. When Pharaoh had the meetings about what to do, how to find the final solution for the Jews, he had a few consultants. One was Bilam HaRasha, we all know. The other one was Eov, and then there was Yitro. And so we had Bilam HaRasha, we had Eov, and we had Yitro. And each one of them heard what's happening and reacted differently. As we all know, Bilam HaRasha, he loves us very much. So he was the one with all the good ideas how to find the final solution for the Jews. Eov was sitting and doing nothing. Not like he was passive. And one of the Midrashim says that this is the reason that God, even though he was a tzaddik, Eov, even though God punished him with all the punishment he got. And then we had Yitro. Yitro, when he heard what's going on, he just left. He didn't stay there. He didn't want to have a part with this evil plans. And now, when he heard what was happening, he was the one who heard exactly what were the plans. And he also knew eventually what was being done and what was planned and haven't been done. In other words, Pharaoh and his committee had a few ideas what to do with the Jews, but they didn't do everything. They managed to do a part of it. But when Yitro heard how God punished the Egyptians, he understood that God punished them not only on what they did, but also in what they were thinking of doing and didn't do. And this is one of the say Am Sgula, that we are Am Sgula. We have this special virtue, Sgula. Sgula. What is the Sgula? One of the Sgulot we learn from this, what's happening here. They said when a Jew thinks about doing something good, and unfortunately he couldn't do it, he couldn't make it. And now we have to understand, not that he thinks about doing something and he really doesn't mean to do it. When he really means to do it, but something happened, he couldn't do it. So even though he didn't do this mitzvah or this good deed, it's being considered as being done. From the other side, if a Jew thinks to do something evil and he couldn't do it, he didn't do it, doesn't mean anything. He didn't do anything because he didn't do it. On the other side, when a goy is thinking about doing something good and he couldn't do it, so he didn't do anything. But if he was thinking of doing something evil and he couldn't do it, it's considered as it's been done. So it goes the opposite way. When a Jew thinks to do something good and doesn't make it, it's going to be let's say it's going to be considered as being done. And from the other side, when a boy thinks about doing something good, and if he didn't do it, he didn't do it. That's it. But if he's thinking about doing something evil, even though he didn't do it, it's considered as it's being done. And that's what Yitro learned, because he saw that when he looks at the plagues and what happened to the Egyptian, he saw that they got punished not only about the plans that were really being out, that were being done, but they were also punished about the plans that they thought about doing and didn't do. So he knew this is God. God he didn't see God in the meetings, but he saw that God knows exactly what's happening. He says, that's God. Now, we have to understand, why is it so important that Yitro is the one, and the whole Parsha is being called on his name? Because Yitro is, if we want to imagine to ourselves, what does it mean? Imagine to yourself that the Pope goes on this porch in the Vatican, and he has all those billions of people listening to him and looking at him all over the world, and all those hundreds of thousands in this square near the Vatican. And he announced with the loudspeakers, people, listen. The Christian world, listen. We are mistaken. This is not the real belief. This is not the real religion. The real religion is the Jewish religion. What do you think is going to happen? I don't think it's going to get down from this porch. But anyway, can you imagine to yourself something like this? This is Yitro. Yitro was Cohen Midian. He was well known. He was one of the biggest persons about on his times, because if Pharaoh was taking him for giving him an opinion, it means that he was very important. A guy like this, when he comes and is searching for all the idols, and he finds out that they're all nonsense and they're nothing, and he comes to the truth that our religion, our God is the only God, this is something to mention. This is why the Parsha is called Yitro. And there is another thing here important to understand. We hear a lot of things in life, but how do we react? So let's see 3 ways to react about something that we hear. All the world heard about what was happening in Egypt. The 10 plagues, the ocean, the seas being separated. Am Israel going into the dry land in the middle of the sea, and all the Egyptians are drowning. All those miracles, everybody was hearing about them. And as we say in Shirat Hayam every morning, אז נבהלו אלופי אדום, אלי מואב יוחזה מורד, נמוגו כל יושבי כנען, תיפול עליהם איבתה ופחד. Everybody heard, and they got frightened. They couldn't believe it. What did they do? Nothing. Went from here, went out, and they did nothing about it and went on with their normal life. Then there was somebody who heard the same thing, and he did the opposite. He came and fought against us. This is Amalek. This Amalek, he heard all the same thing, and he knew, understood that's the truth. Doesn't matter. He doesn't want to accept this truth because it means that he has to change his life, and he wants to show everybody, no, I am going to show you all that everything is by accident, everything is nature, there is no God, even though he heard the same things. And then is Yitro. Yitro heard, and he came to be a part of Am Israel. What do we do when we hear something? You know, sometimes we go into a lecture, we hear things, oh, wow, what beautiful things they said. And then we think we have to fix our ways and do some good things. We go out of the lecture, and 10 minutes later, one day, we forgot all about it. And we go on with our normal life. Why? Because we do the same thing as we have now learned. Some of us, they just don't want to listen. So they let the things go in and out. Some of us, even if they hear it, and even if it's true, they go against it. As the example I bring always, with the guy, the doctor, that shows somebody that it's not allowed to smoke, and smoking was going to kill you, and he shows him a picture, a photograph of a lung dirty with the smoke, like it's black. Says, you see, that's what happens when you smoke. And then 2 minutes later, when this guy goes on to all frightened, he doesn't know what to do. Well, who does he see in the corner that is smoking? The same doctor. Just asking, what are you doing here? You just told me it's going to kill you. Says, okay, but I love smoking. So in other words, our desires, the lust, sometimes makes us do things even though we know that they're wrong. That's Amalek. Then sometimes we do the right thing. And that's Yitro. We hear, we put it into our mind, and we act accordingly. And this is the big difference of hearing things and understand that you have to change your ways. But it's not always easy to change your ways. We all like our comfort zone. We all feel good in the safety of what we are used to. We are people of habits. And for example, if somebody is in a business or has got a job and, is being treated very bad, but he's used to it. And his friend comes to him and says, Moishale, I've got an unbelievable job for you. You're going to manage this new plant that I'm building, this new factory that I'm doing. He says, okay, I think about it. Come tomorrow, I'll give you an answer. He says, what do you mean? So I have to think about it. And what do you think? A lot of researches have been made on the comfort zone. And mainly, let's say, the majority of people, when he comes back the next day, no, Moishale, you coming with me? He says, no, I thought about it. I'm used to what I'm doing. I don't want to risk anything. I'm not going to start something new. And how terrible is it when you hold this comfort zone, even though you know that you're not in a good place. So you have to dare, and you have to do the change. Says Shlomo Amalek, הדלת תיסוב על צירה, והעצל על מיטתו ישן. The door goes open and close, and she's got this thing that's holding her to the tzirim. How do you say tzirim? What's holding the door to the wall. The same as the lazy guy. He sleeps on his bed, you wake him up, and he turns to the other side. Says, okay, in 5 minutes, I'm going to get out. And then you come half an hour later, he's still sleeping. Says, come on, you have to go, you have to work, you have to go to school, you have to do this, you have to do that. And he's still sleeping. He is turning to the other side. The same way as the door. He's turning up, open and closed, but the door stays in the same place, doesn't move. You know how many times a door can be opened a day? Thousands of times. But it stays in the same place. And so are we sometimes. We can have opportunities, we can have new things, new ideas, and it's going to open and close, coming to us and waking us and trying to think, but we will turn around and stay connected to the wall. This is a big lesson. In life, sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone. And now there's another interesting lesson that today I was talking about it. This is from the book V'ten Chelkeinu, about understanding that listening, when you listen to something, eventually it's got an influence in you. We think there is no influence about things that we hear sometimes. See, Moshe Rabbeinu, he's going to Pharaoh and asking him to let our people go. We all know this phrase, let our people go. And what is Pharaoh doing? He's making things worse. And when he comes out, Moshe and Aaron come out to the camp where all the children of Israel are, Bnei Israel are. The two figures that always we have problems, those two evil people, Datan and Aviram, come to him and says, what did you do to us? Look what you've done. Only bad you brought to us going to Pharaoh. Instead of making good, what did Pharaoh do? Make things harder for us. So Moshe Rabbeinu goes and complains to God. And he uses a phrase that Datan and Aviram used. And says, Midat Adin, the judgment, says, we have to do something with him. That didn't like what he said. So we have to understand, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu is not being influenced by Datan and Aviram. He's not going to go with them or think like them. But says the Saba Mislabotke, that we learn here a big lesson. Even if you are a great guy, even Moshe Rabbeinu, he heard something and it was inside. And when he talked to God, it got out a phrase that he shouldn't have used. Not Moshe Rabbeinu, maybe we, yes, but not Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, when we hear something, it's got an influence on us and it goes inside. It's like somebody said to me just now, the Psalmist says, there are things that going from here and going out from the other side, but something stays in the middle. And we have to understand that's a fact. If Moshe Rabbeinu was influenced, and of course he didn't listen like and thought about that what the Tanra Abraham said is good. But how many times we hear things and it goes from here and goes out there and we think it didn't have any influence on us. So be assured that it has an influence. In other words, from the wrong side, from the bad side, it's not nice to say, when I was young, I had a group of American friends. And my wife is from England. And there is a big difference between the way the English people talk and the American people talk. Like in the street, I mean. When you watch an American film or an English film, you right away see the difference. Because the American, they are so the language is not very nice, let's say. They have a lot of curses and they use phrases that normally, if you understand what they are, you will not use them. But they're so used to use them that they just say them freely. And those friends that I had years ago, I couldn't believe how they talk. I couldn't understand how it happens. And then later in my life, I understood. When you live in an environment that's the way people talk, even though you don't want to talk like this, even though that sometimes at your house, nobody talks like this, the influence is there. And eventually you find yourself speaking like this. So get away from those people and understand. Children, your great-grandchildren, or the grandchildren, everybody is being influenced with what he hears. Even though it looks like it comes from here and goes, no, I'm not going to, I'm not that guy. But something stays in, and we have to be careful about it. The same way it goes to the good side. Sometimes we try to teach somebody something, and we talk. As I said in the beginning, when you sit in a musar, somebody is preaching you and telling you about things you have to do and fix in your life. And you go out and say, wow, what a nice thing. But eventually it went in from here and went out from there. Don't worry. Something stayed in. Something always stays in. The point is, what do you do with it? So in other words, if you try to teach your children, and taught them the good ways, and you know the good ways, and it looks like they don't listen to you. It comes in and goes out. They go on with the same thing that they did before. You have to try again and again and again and understand. Im shamoa tishmeu is it in our parsha, in the Kabbalat Torah. When you listen again, it goes in. And even when you listen to it once, there is an influence. The brain is very sophisticated. It gets everything. Sometimes it's in the subconscious. You don't even know that you've got it there, but it will pop out. You see people like my wife watched a series in television on, how do you say, on a prison, a women prison, that they somewhere, white collar, like they did some, let's say, stealing from let's say stealing in the nice way, like embezzling, and they didn't like go with guns and stole. They were from good house. For example, we had a few years ago this story with this girl in the bank that took money from accounts of other people, and it took them time to go there, and there was a lot of money. Let's say you take those women and you put them in jail, and they there together with murderers, with thieves, real thieves, yes, with robbers, and really rapists and low life. And then you saw in this program that they went out like nice ladies from good homes. They were talking nicely in the beginning. But when they got out of the prison, after a few months or a year or two, the language was different. They were talking like low life, dirty language, because the influence is there. So we think, okay, they were there for a long time. This is a big lesson. Even if you hear it once and you hear it twice, it's got an influence on you. And you have to fight it. You have to understand and realize it's there. And from the other side, also, when you tell something and you stand behind your sayings, what you say, It holds. It's getting in. Don't get worried. Believe in what you say and tell it, even though it looks like nobody is listening, because it is. It's going in. That's the way we are built. That's the way that God created. That we have this mind, this sophisticated thing, the neshama. That's everything. It throws out what is not in use now, but sometimes it pops out. So we fight this and how? So from the good side, we have never give up. You try and talk and say the truth, even though it looks like nobody is listening. Believe me, as the Sarah Mislabotka says, it goes in and something, even though a lot of it goes from the other side, something stays here. So when you talk about again and again and again, the influence will come and eventually we'll see the good thing that happens. So don't give up from the other side. Be aware that when you're in a bad environment, what you hear has got an influence on you. So try to get away from bad language. Try and get away from bad society because it's contagious. When talking about listening, look what's here, what's happening now. We have the corona. We have definitely somebody's looking with clear eyes, sees that this corona kills people. So you have people that take it, okay, you know what? As like we said before. So they see all the miracles, they see all the things, they see people dying from corona, they see what's happening. All the doctors are saying that you should take it. The Rabbonim say that you should take it. But they say, oh no, okay. No, I don't want this shot. And they go on with life. Then you have the worst one. They come and say, no, it's not true. And they have fake news. And they putting this fake news all over the people. You shouldn't take the vaccine. It's not good for you. It's going to kill you. It's that there is no disease. There is no nothing. But you have also those who listen and act accordingly and do the right thing. And I hope that's most of us. They listen, they understand there is a corona, there is a virus, and there is a vaccine, and the vaccine saves people. So we go and take the vaccine. We do the right thing. In other words, all in our life, we hear a lot of things, and we have to understand and realize how to act according to what we hear. So we learned today an interesting point about hearing. By the way, also, Shema Israel, we say, we don't say hear Israel or see Israel, but we say Shema Israel, listen, hear. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. When we hear good things, it's got a good influence on us. When we hear bad things, it's got a bad influence on us. When we talk good, it's got a good influence on the people we talk to. When we talk bad, it's got a bad influence on people we talk to. And don't forget that when we talk, something stays. And also, how do we listen when somebody talks to us? Do we listen like all the people that listened and to all the great people that the great things that God did and went on with life didn't change their life? Or do we listen like Amalek, that not only didn't change their life, we go against it, like those who were against the vaccine? Or do we listen like Yitro and do the right thing? Take the vaccine. Take the good from what we hear and act accordingly. All the best. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Gadi.
You're welcome.
And it's Rita's birthday today, so I want to wish her happy birthday.
I wished her already. Happy birthday.
Okay.
For many, many long years, happy years, full with love and light.
All the best.
All the best.